Hi everyone, welcome to Cancer Healing Journey Talks. Myself Sonali Modi from Community Outreach Team of ZenOnco.io and Love Heals Cancer. At ZenOnco.io and Love Heals Cancer, we guide cancer patients on adopting an integrative oncology treatment approach. We help them find the balance between medical treatment and complementary treatment therapies. We help our patients with a team of oncologists, lab experts, nutritionists, and other healthcare professionals so that we can improve the treatment outcome for patients. We also help in connecting patients with other cancer warriors who have gone through this journey to address their queries. And we also share inspirational journeys to motivate cancer warriors who are going through this journey currently. So firstly, I would like to introduce you to today's speaker, Miss Annie. She's a cancer warrior. I'm happy that you're here with us today to share your story. So over to you, Annie. Please start with the introduction.
Thank you. I'm Ann Fonfa. I was diagnosed with breast cancer in January of 1993, but I was suffering from extreme chemical sensitivity. And right after surgery, I discovered there were things the doctor hadn't told me about the circumstances, and I was kind of annoyed. And my uncle had been diagnosed with cancer, and I was told, for some reason I was in charge, I was told that if he didn't do chemo and radiation, he would die in 3 months. And so, oh my God, so we had chemo and radiation. He died 3 weeks later. And in a conversation with the doctors, I said, I don't understand what happened. And they said, well, we didn't promise anything. So going into my own journey 2 years later, I was hesitant and I had this chemical sensitivity. So Doc was completely uninterested in my personal circumstances. I mean, I said, doctor, I have a problem. And he said, oh, doesn't even matter. And I said, well, can I just tell you what it is? So at that time, I was reacting to cleaning products, fragrances of all kinds, hair spray, cologne, everything. I was really sick from it. I mean, I'd be in bed for a few days. So I decided not to do chemo and not to do radiation because it was left side. My whole heart was in the field and my left lung. What to do? In 1993, there was no internet. So I had to make my own plan. And I discovered what we now call complementary medicine. And for me, that was great. But, my tumors recurred and recurred and recurred. And I eventually had a mastectomy, and it still recurred on the chest wall because breast tissue looks exactly alike to a surgeon. And so I still continued to have tumors. Eventually, I found traditional Chinese medicine in the form of a personalized herbal prescription from an herbalist. And that was great, and the cancer stopped, MRI proven. So I realized that the things that I did could be complementary to what other people were doing. And I looked at studies, and as you know, over time, there's more and more studies. The US has the National Library of Medicine online at pubmed.gov, pubmed.gov, and anyone can access it. And you can see the studies on lifestyle, exercise, what we eat, how we handle stress, which is very important, dietary supplements, detoxing, all that kind of stuff. And that's all stuff I continue to do over the years. Now, ironically, on the same day in January 2019, I was diagnosed with follicular lymphoma, which is a cancer of chemical sensitivity and toxicity. So all those years I was still chemically sensitive, but better. But anyway, so now I'm dealing with that. It's completely different because breast cancer, there's quite a lot of information, although nowhere near a cure. But with blood cancer, as lymphoma is, it's very much, nobody knows much. What they do know right now during the COVID time is that we don't develop antibodies very well if you have a blood cancer. So I have my chemical sensitivity and the blood cancer, it's kind of a double whammy. But, all the information that I gathered, I always feel like I took small steps to go in the direction I wanted to go. And, I was winging it. I really didn't know what I was doing. I was betting myself, but worked out for me because I'm still here. It's now 29 years after my original diagnosis. So that's pretty good. And for me, no chemo, no radiation. But I don't recommend to people they don't do things. I recommend to people that they try many, many complementary therapies. And I formed an organization, Annie Appleseed Project. We're online, annieappleseedproject.org, and we show the studies and we discuss information about it. And the truth is, no one should do chemotherapy without complementary therapy. And no one should do radiation without complementary therapy because there are harms. The medical oncology community often dwells on the benefits and doesn't discuss the harms. But we, the people who go through it, we know there are harms. And some of them are short term, some of them are not. Some can last a long time. So I've kind of devoted myself to helping people see what else there is. And it sounds like you all do that too, which is very cool.
Yeah. Yeah, so we follow an integrative treatment approach where we not only help the patient with the medical treatment, but in complementary means in helping them with anti-cancer diet plan, with medical cannabis treatment, Ayurveda, and then palliative care. Many patients need home care services, lab experts, diagnostic tests. So we help the patients overall so that we can ease the journey for them.
That's really great, because I feel that's really, really important. There's the problem with treatment is it's so painful and difficult. And for many, many years, doctors ignored that. So when you say, you guide people, I didn't even know you had cannabis available in India, and that's great. But most oncologists, let's say many oncologists, are not advising their patients in the US, not advising their patients about things they can do to reduce the harms. And I find that terrible, because they have to see, oncologists see the harms every single day. So, but they're trained to look away, and that's a problem. So yeah, it's very, very important to share the information. I use social media, Facebook, Instagram, our newsletter, and once a year, not during these times in the pandemic, but we host a conference. We bring speakers in, and actually a doctor in Mumbai is someone I'm working with right now, Dr. Zubin Marolia, and he prescribed for me mistletoe, which I'm using as what they call subcutaneous injection into my belly. And it's tricky, but it's doable. And it helps boost the immune system. So right now, as I said, I don't have any immune protection theoretically from COVID-19. So I'm not going very many places. And of course, I'm not traveling. But in order to boost my own immune system so I don't get into trouble, I'm using the mistletoe along with all the other things I do. And, and I'm sure your listeners know this, you can't stop eating healthy. You can't stop exercising. You can't stop dealing with yourself. You have to go on for the rest of your life. You don't have to follow a specific eating pattern, but you do have to make choices that involve less deep fried food, which is difficult in all cultures because we have a lot of deep fried food, but less is better, and no added sugar if possible. And fruit's fine. A lot of people get confused about fruit and added sugar. Fruit, it's a whole food. So when you eat a piece of fruit, you get the fiber, you get all the nutrients, and there are thousands of very valuable nutrients. And in the way research is done, they look at one element at a time. But really, it's the totality of the elements that make the difference. So all of that is digested, eventually becomes glucose, which is sugar. But it's not sugar. It's when you've already digested all the things you need. So there's some misunderstanding. And a lot of times docs, especially in the US, will say, oh, stay off antioxidants, or don't eat any fruit, or, and lower vegetables, which you'll get to. It's ridiculous. It doesn't interfere. We know from the outcomes of people that they're healthier in every possible way, including dealing with cancer, by eating a healthful diet. And it's quite the issue.
Yeah. So what lifestyle changes you made during, after the treatment?
Well, it's interesting because I had stopped eating red meat long before my diagnosis, but it's possible to be an unhealthy vegetarian. And that's what I was. I was still having cake. Never occurred to me not to have a bagel. I don't know if y'all eat bagels, but all these things and I became, even before the cancer diagnosis, I said I had chemical sensitivity. It showed up in a variety of ways. I had rashes, I had candida, which is a yeast infection. I had it all over my body. So I had to change. I knew that things were just not going in the right direction. But once I got a cancer diagnosis, that was so shocking that I immediately became vegan and stopped having any dairy products and all that. So ironically, to that decision, there's a cancer therapy out of Germany from a while ago from a doctor who's no longer with us named Joanna Budwig. And the Budwig protocol is cottage cheese and flaxseed oil. And I decided I hate cottage cheese. So I adopted it, and I had Quark, which is a German style cheese that's like cottage cheese, but somehow I like it. And I had that even though I was vegan, but I make my own rules. I also exercised in the beginning an hour a day. Now I'm older, I'm 73 now. I don't exercise for an hour, but I do 10 to 20 minutes a day. And I'll sometimes take quite a long walk. Very lucky to live right near a nature preserve. And I can go and visit with the birds and the alligators, the turtles, and that kind of thing. And what else? So I'm pretty lucky. I was born like a happy person. I don't really suffer from depression. I'm not unhappy about things. And I focus on today I am alive, and that's what matters. And it's corny, but incidents in life help you relate to these things. So I was in a support group, which I thought was really, really valuable. And I learned so much about what else was going on in the cancer world, including stupid things that doctors do. Like, again, I said I had breast cancer. So I was in the support group, and one of the women, her father had breast cancer. And she was told in 1993 that it didn't matter that her father had cancer. And I was saying, well, I had 10th grade biology, but I remember you get half from your mom and half from your dad. So how could it not matter? But that's the belief back in the day. And then she said, because she knew about breast cancer, she said to her surgeon, don't cut the brachial nerve in my arm. So I asked my surgeon, why do you cut the brachial nerve, which results in numb feeling forever? Because I'm 30 years out and I'm still numb over there. So he said, well, it might form scar tissue and, we'd have to cut it. So I said, so wait, you cut it because you might have to cut it in the future? Which is, that's not something I relate to at all. Anyway, so I learned a lot from the support group, and that was very valuable. But in terms of stress, we knew this researcher. I had lymphedema, by the way, because they took a lot of lymph nodes right off the bat back then. This researcher was looking into lymphedema, so we knew her quite well. And one day, she was my age, we were 56 at the time, so it was years ago. She walked out of the hospital, she was a doctor, researcher, and she got hit by a truck and she died immediately. And all of us in the group are going, how could that be? Somebody died without cancer, they just died. So point being, today is the day we have, go with it, because nobody knows what tomorrow's going to do. Nobody. You don't only die of cancer, you die of a lot of things. So better to live while you're alive. And as I often joke around with people, there's eons to be dead. So while you're alive, go with that. So that's how I handle stress. I don't really allow it to penetrate my heart or soul or being. I just let it go, because what's the point? I'm married to a worrier. My husband's a big worrier. So he often says he's taken my worry. I say to him, you imagine all these things that could go wrong, but maybe that won't happen. Or maybe something you didn't imagine will happen, or maybe one of them. But what's the point? You aggravate yourself over something that may not happen. And meanwhile, today got wasted worrying about tomorrow. I don't do that. And I don't recommend it. I know it's easy for me to say, but it's something you can focus on and think about. Today is the first day of the rest of my life. That's another corny slogan we had, but it's true. So I go that way. Even right now, my oldest grandson is actually in the hospital, and he was supposed to be released yesterday and he was not. Still in the hospital an extra day. So, I could spend a lot of time being anxious about that, but I can't allow myself to do that. My belief is he'll be fine. He's going to recover. He's 16 years old. He's going to come home. Any other plan would be a mistake. And I would be wasting, my energy in the wrong direction. And I really believe that. I really think it's important. So stress handling, great, really great. We, as you know, we adopt a lot of what we think is our yoga practices in the US. I know it's not anything like what yoga is in India, but we have movements that we do and breathing and things like that. And it does help people to calm down. Taking a deep breath, that's always a good idea. Always. It works for me too, works for everybody. So simple things, as you know, we teach people simple things. At our conferences, we have Qigong. So we have a Qigong master who comes every year. He's a local man, and he teaches people moves. I actually find it hard to follow them because they're fast, and I need somebody to go slow motion, so that I can learn it. But everybody else really, everybody gets up, everybody tries it, everybody feels better afterwards. And what you choose to do, it's your choice. But again, there are certain patterns: eating fresh fruits and vegetables whenever possible, handling stress, very important, being physically active. And you don't have to be an athlete. My husband right now is off playing pickleball. I don't know if you have pickleball in India yet, but it's everywhere in the US. And he's a champion athlete, but he's old now. He's 78, and he needs to do something a little lower key, which is what pickleball is. I'm not athletic, as I already said. I now do 10 to 20 minutes a day of movement, and everyone should do that. Just keep moving. There's a lot of studies that's really important for exercise. And again, I've spoken to thousands of people in the 30 years of my doing advocacy work, and we know it makes a difference. There are people who can go through chemotherapy and radiation without being harmed because they're doing these kinds of things, protecting themselves. And also on our website, and also I don't know, this may come out backwards, but we have this form, I think it is backwards, but we have this thing we produced, and it's called Evidence-Based Natural Methods to Reduce Treatment Toxicity. And it's all these things that have evidence, and we show at least one citation about ways to reduce the toxicity for radiation, for chemotherapy, for any of, even for surgery. And there's an herb that grows in many, many places around the world called arnica, which you all may know about. And arnica helps to reduce bleeding, bruising, and swelling. So it can go under the tongue, which is systemic, or it can be topical if you sprain your ankle or something like that. And people can start from the day they have, the day before they're going to have surgery to protect themselves. And also, you feel good when you take some control. One thing about cancer, you lose control. All of a sudden you're on this assembly line, everything they're going to do, and you have to find a way to find yourself and keep yourself whole. And I think that's by taking control of what you can do. That's our job, taking care of ourselves.
Yeah. So exactly like what treatment did you underwent? And how was the experience during the treatment time?
Okay, so in 1993, people were not discussing cancer publicly. It was right before the explosion of information on breast cancer. So I didn't know anything. I didn't know anyone with breast cancer. And quite a lot of people in talking to me, they didn't know any better. So people would say, oh, my next door neighbor's cousin, oh, but she died. Oh, my coworker, oh, but she died. Thanks a lot. So I kind of thought up until the night before the surgery that I was going to have a lumpectomy. Until the night before, I thought, I could die, 44 years old, and this could be the end. And I got a phone call from a woman. She said to me, you don't know me, but someone told me you have breast cancer, and I would like you to know I'm a 10-year survivor. So now it's 30 years later, but I still get goosebumps. The hair on my arm still rises. She saved my life, because when I heard that she was a 10-year survivor, I knew, what the heck, I could do that too. So I immediately became a survivor the night before surgery. So that was very, very helpful. Plus, I had a good friend who had become an acupuncturist, and she'd been working with me on a variety of issues. One thing she did was, in 3 months, she stopped all my menstrual cramps. I never had any other pain. That was great. And she gave me some tablets or capsules of Chinese herb to stop, that works like arnica, stop the bleeding, bruising, swelling. And I took it prior to surgery. So I already felt, A, I can survive, and B, I have something to reduce the trouble from surgery. Went into surgery. This was interesting, really. I had a 10 a.m. schedule, and they didn't take me until 2 p.m. So in our system, you don't drink after midnight, no water, no food. So I wasn't hungry, but I was very, very thirsty, and I was dehydrated. So by the time they were going to put the IV in, my veins were like tight because I was dehydrated. Speaking of that, I'll have a drink. Excuse me.
Yeah.
Anyway, so what I didn't realize was that they were going to take lymph nodes. Nobody told me anything about it. When I first met with the surgeon, I didn't even realize that I could choose my own surgeon. So that's how unaware I was. But he didn't mention anything about taking lymph nodes, nothing like that. And he asked me if I had any questions. But, how do you ask questions about something you don't know about? And I wasn't going to say, oh, doc, am I going to survive? Because I knew I was going to survive, but, I let that go. But anyway, so he took 18 lymph nodes. And I'd had a prior injury to that arm on the left side. So it immediately swelled up. He didn't identify lymphedema. So that was very unfortunate. And when I went to the hospital, because of the chemical sensitivity, I brought my own pillowcase. I brought my own food. My mother came. I was only there for 2 days. My mother brought me a fresh squeezed organic carrot juice. And I was trying to be healthy all throughout the whole thing. The only thing was I didn't sleep at all after the surgery. No sleep. So I was there for 2 nights. I didn't sleep at all. I just roamed the hospital. And I always said, no one asked me what I was doing. No one spoke to me. No nurse, no doctor, no staff member. I just wandered the hospital all night long for 2 nights. Then my husband said, can she go home? I said, yes. I went home. I didn't sleep for 4 more nights. That was 6 nights with no sleep, because my chemical sensitivity took the anesthesia and reversed it. No sleep. So, you can get pretty crazy after 6 nights of no sleep. So one of the things that happened, completely tertiary, but I broke my toe. I walked into the wall because I was so out of it. Okay, but I had a lumpectomy, and the doctor said, oh, we got it all. So I'm sure lots of people listening have heard that we got it all, but that's completely untrue, because A, they can't tell. And B, cancer comes back, or could, especially breast cancer. You know, breast cancer is known to be gone for 20 years or more and then come back suddenly. So one of the research questions that's unresolved is where the heck were the cancer cells? But we don't have equipment that can see it. Speaking of that, medicine is the slowest profession in the universe. When I was diagnosed, I was working for a company that created business presentations. I was in the sales department, and we would get new software pretty much every month and upgrade. In medicine, it could take 20, 40 years before anything's changed. So over 20 years ago, I was at a cancer meeting where they were discussing circulating tumor cells, CTC. And now it's coming into play. It's called liquid biopsy. And we can actually gain some information about whether you have cancer or not through a blood test. But it's not general practice still, you know, and it's going to take a longer time. It's already been over 20 years. That's kind of crazy. And so all of the things that I started talking about 25, 30 years ago are coming into play. But again, as I said, majority of oncologists are not offering it. I don't know if they do in Mumbai or in India. I doubt they do, because they're trained a certain way and they're trained for pharmaceuticals. And in fact, you know, I have lymphoma now, and I talk to my doctor about what I'd like to do. And I make a plan with her, and a month later, she tells me the plan that I told her the month before. That's fine. I don't need credit for it. I just needed to go the way I wanted to. So when I told her that I was doing her treatment, which was a monoclonal antibody with traditional Chinese herbal prescription, thank goodness my herbalist and I are still friends, the longtime friends, and he prescribed it. And she said to me, oh, you know, there's no evidence that'll work. And I said, well, there's a 6,000-year tradition of Chinese medicine. I think we can't presume that the Chinese are so dumb that in 6,000 years they never noticed that it wasn't working. You know, I mean, it's hubris, it's pride. It's ridiculous to say, oh, that's not proven, when it's like the great grandparent of our medical system. Thousands and thousands of years it's been effective. So for me, it's been great. I have taken this medicine, monoclonal antibody, every 2 months now. No harms at all. I have a day of being like a little dizzy, but it passes, and I'm not sick from it. And there's, you know, a whole arm's length of things that could be wrong from the treatment. So complementary medicine at its finest. And I've used it for everything throughout my life. Again, I'm chemically sensitive. Standard prescriptions do not work for me. I mean, obviously things go sideways, and I can't do that. I mean, another classic example, I actually had a vaccine shot. My husband was helping me with everything, and he was really great. So I decided I would try it. I really was afraid, but I tried it. 2 weeks later, I was in the hospital, high fever and blood clots. 2 weeks after that, Johnson & Johnson's drug was shown to cause blood clots. But at the time that I went in the hospital, we didn't know that. So again, I had a bad reaction based on chemical sensitivity. So I got no antibodies from it, and I went to the hospital. And they say people who've been through chemotherapy because their immune system was lowered have less antibodies. So there's every reason on earth to do healthy lifestyle, because it helps for everything. It helps for heart disease, diabetes, high blood pressure, you know, all modern illnesses. And I don't know about India, but in the US, diabetes is rampant, just terrible. And people it's about what you eat, you know. If you're having fast food on a pretty much daily basis or even weekly basis, you're causing yourself harm. It's deep fried. It's the least healthy thing to begin with, because it can't be cheap unless it's cheap food, and that's not okay. So again, fresh fruit and vegetables, you know, the whole grain, no deep fried if you can keep it that way, or as minimal as possible. In the US, our animals are fed hormones, which can't be helpful at all, and antibiotics, and this is problematic. So I don't eat any meat at all, and I haven't for years. I don't eat fowl, chicken, fish, whatever. I mean, chicken, turkey, whatever. I just try to eat a pure vegetarian with some, you know, moments. I mean, if I feel like I really want to do something different, I'll do it, because it's my plan and I can adjust it. And I say this to everyone, you do not have to follow my plan, but the parameters are the right ones. So fit your plan into the parameters of the healthiest possible food, movement, stress reduction. And I take dietary supplements. I take lots of them, and I try different things, and I change it up. And sometimes it isn't the right thing, and my body tells me that. And, you know, when I'm trying a supplement, I just take one pill, no matter what the label says. It could say 2 twice a day, but I take one. and build it up. And that's what I think everyone should do, because you can be allergic to anything. I certainly am. I've learned to be careful. But overall, I think it's the right thing for people to do. It's much healthier. And again, the outcomes are there. Lots and lots of people will tell you it worked for them. They had less pain, less suffering, no long-time harms. I'm so perturbed by that. It seems to me so completely unfair that people suffer harm from getting treated for cancer. It just shouldn't be like that. And as you may know, it's particularly bad for children and young adults. The younger you are when you get the treatment, the more damage can be done to your system. And sometimes there's second cancers, which are organ cancers, much more complex because of the treatment. And again, the medical community has ignored it for so long. And actually, they don't talk to each other about it. I go to a lot of cancer meetings, not in the last 2 years, obviously, but at cancer meetings, they'll present the new drug and all the benefits. And then it's up to the advocate community really to say, well, what are the harms? Because otherwise we wouldn't even find out about it. It's not the way they present stuff, and it's not the way their mind goes, but that's wrong. And there's never been a presentation about medical cannabis, despite the growing body of evidence. They don't discuss nutrition. They hardly ever discuss exercise, even though that's well established. And, the mainstream has to catch up. But again, as I said, the medical community, 20, 30, 40 years behind. And it's ridiculous. I mean, I heard in my hematology office, a nurse said to the patient, oh, well, I don't know anything about nutrition, but she could learn. She could learn. You learned, I learned, other people learned, you could learn. But she wasn't interested in learning because she had her training, and her training was very narrow. And it's still pretty narrow. I mean, in the US medical schools, they have like a one class on nutrition, one in 4 years. It's not great. I mean, it's really very limiting. So,
yeah. So like, how did you manage your emotional well-being during those times?
Well, again, both my sister and brother and I, we consider ourselves to have happy genes. Wake up in the morning in a very optimistic, good mood. And I feel that way. I'm lucky that way. I feel optimistic, but I can take joy in the smallest things. So I live on a lake and I look out the back and I see these really interesting, beautiful birds landing, flying by, doing things like that. And I feel like, it brings me pleasure, it brings me joy. I hear a child laugh, that brings me joy. I believe it's very worthwhile to take joy in small amounts if need be. I mean, I have a serious cancer, but am I going to die? Yeah. Is everyone going to die? Absolutely. This is no escape planet. You live, you die. So again, I focus on today. Today's the day I plan to be happy. I am happy. I will be happy. I'm going to do things that make me happy. That's how it is. Even if it's a small thing. Yesterday we Zoomed with a cousin of mine who lives in Argentina. It was wonderful. I take that joy and I can remember what a pleasure it was to talk to her and focus on that if I want. There's a lot of joy in the world, and not seeing that is it's not healthy. Another thing is being in nature. And there's really interesting studies that show that even if you have a poster on your wall of a forest or a lake or the beach, the ocean, anything like that, it makes us feel better. So why not do that? And I'm lucky enough that in the room that I do exercise in, again, I'm chemically sensitive, so I can't go to a gym. I do it myself, but I look out at my lake and the birds and, everything in nature, and it makes me feel good. And it can make anyone feel good. It's not my personal world. Find your joy, find your pleasure. That's the way to live.
Yeah. So like, what do you think is the importance of self-examination and why?
So yeah, that's a good question, because I had a mammogram when I was 40. That was supposed to be the baseline. So I didn't have one at 42. And at 44, I found a lump. And I thought, well, this is strange. And I was doing a self-exam in the shower, but you could do it lying in your bed. And it's not a fancy thing. You use your fingertips in a circular motion and, you just keep going. If you get to know your breasts, almost everybody's got lumps. They're usually cysts. The majority of lumps are not cancer, so you don't have to have a panic. And I found something and I said, okay, I'll go get a mammogram. And I went and had a mammogram, but actually I had the type of breast cancer that did not show up on a mammogram. But the doc knew something was wrong because I had this lump. She could feel it, and it wasn't really on the screen. Wasn't really, but anyway, but I found it myself. And a lot of, I would say 2/3 of breast cancer lumps are found on their own. Other cancers don't show a lump, and some breast cancers don't. There's types of breast cancer that are, your breast can become reddish color, or the nipple is inverted, or it pebbles up on the skin. There's a lot of, they call it orange, like orange peel, a lot of different ways. People who have cancers of the organs, it usually involves some pain, maybe some bleeding, change in the bowel habits. There's a lot of ways to be aware. And it's really important to respond to your body. I mean, getting a test is not the worst thing in the world. Then better to know. And also, I mean, it's true, earlier detection is probably better, because you can start doing your health protocol, you can start doing the treatment, whatever you need, you can get started on. And I think that's important. People are afraid, people are afraid and they take their time. But I had an uncle who had colorectal cancer. He bled for a year before he went to the doctor, but he didn't die from it. So he was lucky. He lived another 30 years, 25 years, whatever. So, but yeah, it's better to get the diagnosis. So that's what I did, but I waited a month, thought it over. I was going to see my mother, who didn't live near me, and I didn't want to mess that plan up. So first I visited her and the family, and then I went to the doctor in the beginning of the year. And actually, I mean, it worked out fine. I had early stage cancer, but again, as I said, it recurred for years. Actually, I had 9 years of tumor recurrence, but I just felt all throughout the whole time that I was going to survive. And I talked to myself all the time about it, and affirmations and encouragement. I think those are good ideas. You kind of train your brain to be happier with affirmations. And another thing, in 1997 rather, a doctor told me that I had stage 4 because I had, after the mastectomy, I had tumors. And I said, I don't think you're talking to me. And then unfortunately, another doctor confirmed it. And I just said, I just pushed it away from me because I didn't feel like that was appropriate. First of all, nobody did any tests, but I did not know that they had to test in order to know if you're stage 4 or not. So, but I intuited it, I just knew this is not me. And obviously it's 30 years later and, I'm fine. But again, their attitude, and as you may know, I don't know if this doctors in India do this, but in the US, they love to give you a deadline. Oh, you have a year to live. You have 4 months to live. And people obey. Your doctor tells you 4 months, boy, you could die to the day. I had a friend early on, Jean Martin, and she said to me, I just want to make it to Christmas. She died Christmas morning. I just want to make it till my grandkid's 80, gotta make an early plan. I want to make a plan very far in the future because apparently our bodies and our minds obey those plans. So when my grandson is 80, I'll be gone. That'll be it. It's ridiculous otherwise. But people do obey their doctors. And as you know, and I know, they don't know, they can't tell. There's so many people who said, oh, they gave me 2 months to live and it's 8 years later, and me, 1997, stage 4, and now it's 2021 and I'm still here. So I don't obey a death sentence. I don't think it's a good idea. I don't think anyone should take it to heart. It's creepy, but your doctor has no right to do it because they don't know. Nobody knows. Nobody knows. And today we're alive. Celebrate that. Find your joy, find your passion.
Yeah. So every crisis in life teaches you a particular lesson. So what life lessons has this cancer journey taught you?
Well, it's funny because I had a happy childhood. I don't have any major issues that I haven't worked out in my life. And at the time, I didn't feel like, wow, I'm so lucky I got cancer so I could change my life. That just didn't happen for me. I know a lot of people feel like, wow, this is good, full stop on the bad life, and it gave me the chance to have a good life. But I was already focused on trying to get healthier. And so that didn't change for me. What it did do for me was introduce me to a ton of people that I felt kinship with. And that was very, very important. And going to conferences, I meet other advocates, and they're the people I love the most in the world because they care enough to go out and try to help others. And to me, that's the most important thing that I can do. I mean, my work is talking to people, finding studies, sharing information, running the conference, trying to influence change. And many of the advocates who've known me a long time will say, oh, and now they're talking about exercise. Now they're talking about nutrition. And that's good. I didn't make it happen, but I might have contributed a small part. I like to think so. But but yeah, for me, it was meeting the people and finding out that I could make a difference. That was the best thing that happened to me.
So like it is said that a sound support system is very much important to fight this situation, because it also helps you to keep motivated and keep encouraging you. So who was your support system along with the family?
Yeah, so, that's interesting because a lot of us find that our friends don't know what to say. So they don't say anything. They don't come over and they don't call you. They leave you alone. But I had, first of all, my mother was still alive at the time, my sister, my husband, and strangely enough, my husband's first cousin, and those people, and a next door neighbor. Everyone was very helpful to me and very supportive. I mean, I started doing what's called the Gerson program. I had gone to Mexico. I learned how to do juicing and other things. And my next door neighbor across the way, young man, I had lymphedema and it was quite bad and it was painful. And he used to cut up the carrots so that I could make carrot juice. It was super nice of him, I couldn't do it. And my husband ran a business and he couldn't stay home to cut the carrots for me. So this young man cut the carrots every single day for 18 months. I mean, it was extraordinary and really incredibly helpful. My husband's cousin came over with a journal and a really fancy pen. And she said, you should journal during this time period. Mm-hmm. And of course, the thing is, I kind of lied in the journal. I kind of wrote things that weren't exactly what I was going through. I had this desire to appear, I don't know. It was sad. When I read it now, I know nothing was real. But anyway, my husband, he paid for all the things that I did, not covered by insurance in the US, and everything except for surgery. Nothing was covered. Acupuncture wasn't covered, but I continued to do acupuncture. I did a million things. I lived in New York City and I went to meetings and lectures and tried to find things to do. And everything cost money. And my husband paid. We spent thousands of dollars to get me well. But, he says it's worth it because I got well. But it was a lot of money and it was scary because I had to stop working when I started having recurrence of tumor, because back then we thought I was going to die. And I didn't want to be working my job, even though I liked my job, but I wanted to concentrate on myself. And that's what I did. And then after that, I caught the advocacy spirit and I didn't want to go back to a job because I wanted to be an advocate. But my mother went with me to Mexico, so that was pretty cool. And it was interesting, I would say about a third of my family were really opposed to my doing natural stuff. They're like, my father was a crazy golfer. He loved to golf. And he called me up and he said, called me up every day basically, and said, my partner had cancer. She had breast cancer. She did chemo. She's fine. I said, Dad, it doesn't correspond to my life. I'm not gonna do that. Even if I could golf, I'm not gonna do it. So he wasn't on board. My brother was kind of nervous, but my sister and my mother supported me. My husband, my across the way neighbor, and my next door neighbor, and that that was enough. And then once I started meeting people, I like I said, I joined a support group, and that was incredible. I mean, just incredible. There were so many people at the organization whom I really felt a connection to. There is definitely a sisterhood, brotherhood thing about cancer because we know.
Yeah. So like, what was your first reaction when your reports were finally showing that you are cancer free?
Yeah, so that's interesting. It's a really weird story. I had an MRI in August of 2001. I lived in New York City. I had a date with my surgeon, who was the only doctor following me, the breast surgeon, on September 12th, 2001. Now in New York City on September 11th, 2001, that's the day that the World Trade Center fell because of the plane that crashed to it. I don't know if you're all aware of that, but it was a big thing. And it was very dramatic. All of the public transportation ceased on the 12th. There was no taxis or no private cars, no buses, no subways. And I walked to the hospital to meet my doctor. The air quality was terrible and I'm chemically sensitive. So I had a mask, towel wrapped around my whole face and everything. And I get to the hospital. My doctor was an hour late. I waited for her in the hospital. When she comes, she says to me, oh, we can't find any disease. We're going to call it no discernible disease. Now, there's a thing called no evidence of disease, NED, which most people want to get. But because I didn't do chemo and radiation, she said, I can't say for sure. So we're going to call it NDD, no discernible disease. And then she said, I want to announce it to the staff. So she announces through the loudspeaker, have a patient here who's free of cancer after 9 years. Everybody applauds, and I leave. Very emotional time because the World Trade Center collapsed, 3,000 people died, and I don't have cancer anymore. So I go out, and the hospital was actually straight ahead. You could see the World Trade Center smoking, all the, everything, dead stuff in the air. And I started to cry. And people ran up, total strangers ran up to me and, it's going to be okay. Don't worry, we'll be fine. And meanwhile, I'm saying in my head, I'm alive, because it hung over me for 9 years. And then I was free of cancer. So that was pretty great. And it was very dramatic because my whole city was involved,
Yeah. So do you still go for prescribed checkups after you are declared cancer-free?
I do not. There's really no point. Now I have a PET scan every 6 months for the blood cancer. But even that, it is what it is. I'm doing the treatment. I'm not going to do a different treatment plan, despite my doc always asking me to do chemo. I'm not doing chemo. Not right for me. I know that. I actually took a half dose and a full dose of chemo on a 2-day period. And I confirmed that it's absolutely the worst thing that could happen. And interestingly enough, my hair started falling out right away. And that was really obnoxious. I was really annoyed by that. But I had to detox from the chemo, and that took a couple of months. But I did. I definitely don't want to do it as a treatment. It's just not right for me. I'm chemically sensitive. It's crazy treatment. And I don't feel like it'll bring me any relief. I would rather go through it the way I plan. And, I seek treatments all over the world. So I just started doing something snake grass that I heard about from Asia. I think maybe Singapore, a doctor spoke about it. But in any case, I can afford to do things, which is very lucky. My husband is willing to pay for whatever we need. And that's what I do. I just keep trying things. It's always small steps in my mind. You just keep going until you find the next step that keeps you going the next step, and you just keep going. So I've kept going for almost 30 years. It's working for me. So I have no reason to change that plan. And, all the people that I talk to who I can help understand that it's worthwhile to stay on that path. I think it's a good idea. Like I said in the beginning, I never tell people what not to do, but I encourage people to do more stuff along with it. I think complementary medicine is fabulous. I do, because no matter what, you feel better every step of the way. Again, we're all going to die at some point, whatever causes the death, but it's how you live that matters. And if you can live healthier and happier, that's the right direction to go in, for sure.
Yeah. So at what stage were you diagnosed with this breast cancer in 1993?
Yes, it was originally stage 1. I had a multifocal invasive lobular. So about 10% of breast cancer is lobular. Mostly it's ductal. And they don't treat it any differently. But my doctor, it's kind of ironic. This doctor was focused on lumpectomy. He believed that was the right thing to do. And I was excited. I'll get to keep my breast. So he gives me a lumpectomy, but I had multifocal disease. He didn't know that. He didn't do a biopsy. And it didn't show up on a mammogram, so he didn't know there were other tumors there. But they continued to develop. In fact, I got another tumor in the exact same place. Actually, I had 2 tumors. That was the first recurrence, in the exact same place as the first appearance ever. And so I eventually, but it took me 3 lumpectomies before I agreed to a mastectomy. And then I did that. And then, as I said, in 97, which was, 4 years later, they suggested I was stage 4. And I suggested they were wrong. And I was right. So that's all that matters. And, still here.
Yeah. So gratitude seems to be the biggest strength to fight the situation. So what were you ever so grateful for that made you always calm down after thinking or revisiting that memory?
Well, I was lucky again in my support system. My mother's 100% with me. My husband, the doctor was calling my husband at work and saying, your wife's going to die. She doesn't want radiation. Well, first of all, nobody dies with it because they didn't do radiation. Radiation's local disease control. So that was crazy. But he kept saying, I'm with my wife. I'm with her. I'm not going to do what you do. I want to do what she wants. And he'd say to me, if you don't know what you're doing, I'm still with you. And I said, yeah, I don't know what I'm doing, but it's great. And he backed me up 100%. And that really worked for me. And I was able to, because a lot of people don't like it when you don't do things, or when you do other things, especially years ago, it was a shocking thing to try natural therapies or alternative treatments. But he was with me, my mother was with me, and my sister was with me strongly. And I found people who started to agree with me, and that was very helpful. And I was really grateful that that was true. But I never felt like, oh, their opinion matters more than mine. I mean, if somebody didn't like what I was doing, that's their problem. I didn't take it on as my problem. I know lots of people who were so upset in a support group they had to leave, but I didn't feel that way. I felt like I'm on the path for me. You don't have to do it, you don't have to like it, but it's my path. And I stayed with that.
So what message you would like to give to other cancer patients and caregivers?
So the key thing is, don't give up. Don't give up. Be happy. Find your small joy. Do as many complementary and natural things as you can. Make lifestyle changes. It really matters for every reason. And, stay close to your loved ones.
Yeah. So what do you think are the stigmas attached to cancer and the importance of awareness for it?
Well, yeah, it actually seemed to me in certain times that people were afraid they'd catch it because if I came near them, it's not contagious. But lifestyle matters, and you can reduce your risk, and everybody should know that. So I really think people need to stay calm. They need to find a support group if they can. There's online support groups too, so you don't have to go it alone, because that's a really hard thing. And it really doesn't matter what other people think. It matters what you think. It really that's the key thing. I mean, you have to be calm and happy in yourself. Here's a classic example. We have a holiday called Halloween, in which kids get dressed up and they go around door to door and they get candy. Well, I don't give out candy. I give out toys because I don't believe in candy. But on Halloween, the day before, we had a farmer's market. And I went to the farmer's market wearing this vest that I have that has thousands of pins on it, designer pins, all different designs. And I was very proud of wearing it, and my holiday idea. No one said anything to me. No one said, oh, wow, your vest. Oh, wow. Nothing. One person, I said, what do you think of my vest? And she said, oh, yeah, it's really cute. So I'm important to me, but no one else. I mean, they see me, they notice me, they forget me. That's real life. So to dwell on what you think other people think of you, you're thinking of what they're thinking. That's ridiculous. You don't know what they're thinking. Who cares? Think about yourself. Put an affirmation up on this is how I quit cigarette smoking. Big sign. You're lovable. You're an adult. You don't need cigarettes. Whatever you want to say. I'm worth it. It's worth it. I'll live. I'm always, you're going to live till you die. That's the idea. Live, live, live. Be happy. It doesn't matter what other people think. It shouldn't have any impact on your life.
Yeah.
My opinion.
So if you have to sum up your journey in one sentence, then what would that be?
I believe in being happy, and I'm going to live well until the day that I die. And I like to help people.
Yes. So how do you help others?
Well, I provide research. I provide the evidence for people to make more informed decisions. I talk to people. I run a conference every year. I speak up at cancer meetings. I'm an advocate. I ask hard questions, and I like to do that. I think it's really important. We have to move it forward.
Yeah. So your story is really inspiring. And I hope this session really motivates people out there who are traveling or who have traveled through this journey. So it was lovely having you here today on the session with us, Annie. So once
again,
thank you so much.
I appreciate it. Thank you.